Good evening. Entirely innocent. That's how a coroner has described 10 people who were shot dead during an army operation in and around the Ballymurphy estate in West Belfast in August 1971. They included a mother of 8 and a Catholic priest. At the time, the army said the victims were IRA members. Today, the coroner said that wasn't true. After hearing 17 months of evidence, Mrs. Justice Keegan found all of those killed were entirely innocent of any wrongdoing. 9 of the 10 were shot by the army. It was uncertain who had shot the 10th victim. The army had used disproportionate force in at least 7 of the killings, and the others hadn't been properly investigated. Our reporter Will Leach has this report.
A long-awaited day, the culmination of a long campaign spanning many decades, bringing many versions of the truth and many tears. The Ballymurphy families waited 5 decades for this moment, but once inside, everything was quiet.
For more than 2.5 hours, the family sat in total silence inside this conference centre, whilst the coroner, Mrs. Justice Keegan, delivered her findings. The only sounds, her voice, the turning of her pages, and the roar of the COVID-compliant air conditioning.
And the findings of the longest-running inquest in Northern Ireland to date. All 10 victims have had their names cleared. Incident 1. Killed by the army by soldiers who were under fire, probably from 3 Queen's Regiment, said the coroner, but who were using disproportionate force. Father Hugh Mullen and Frank Quinn were innocent men, not gunmen. Father Mullen, she added, was a peacemaker.
He had gone out to help an injured man. He hadn't gone out to hurt anyone. He was out doing his priestly duty. And for the coroner to say what we already knew, but she said it to the world, that he was a totally innocent man.
Apology would really, from them, would really mean nothing, but it would take the British government to, at the moment with this process going on, it would take the British government to apologise. Apologise to the people for 3 days around a small nationalist area in West Belfast, a small community.
Incident 2. Killed by the army. Soldiers from 2 Para under fire using disproportionate force. Joan Connolly, Noel Phillips, Joseph Murphy and Daniel Taggart were all innocent, not gunmen or a gunwoman, as the soldiers had said.
They used too much force when they killed her, and we're just delighted with the outcome today, because today is our day. Today's my mummy's day. Today's the day for Ballymurphy. Thank you.
Incident 3. Edward Docherty was an innocent man, killed by a shot fired by Soldier M3 from a military tractor. Mr. Docherty wasn't a petrol bomber, said the coroner, as M3 had initially claimed. The coroner accepted the soldier was under threat, but felt he still used excessive force, firing several shots.
This man who shot Eddie, I seen him in court. He was a man of near 80 years of age. I don't want that. No. But I want our children to get what they deserve.
Incident 4. John Laverty and Joseph Corr were shot by the army. 1 Para in this case. They were innocent men, not gunmen as soldiers claimed. There was no valid justification, the coroner said, for the soldiers opening fire.
We were absolutely delighted with what the coroner came out with today. She actually gave us more than what we were expecting. I mean, we just thought she was going to say innocent, but she says that John Lavery and my daddy should never have been classed as gunmen.
Incident 5, the last killing examined. War veteran John McCare, again an innocent, unarmed citizen, said the coroner, going about his work. She couldn't determine whether he was killed by a shot from the army or a paramilitary sniper.
We're just so happy because the stigma has stuck for 50 years. I'm sorry that the 3 brothers and a sister and my mother aren't here to see this. They've all died in the meantime.
Of the army, the coroner did say there was an abject failure of the state to properly investigate the death of an innocent man. The findings finished, supporters outside greeted the news with relief and cheering the campaigners who'd wanted a 50-year-long record put straight.
For the 50 years the families have been campaigning for the truth, they've also been yearning for the clearing of their loved ones' names, that they were innocent, that they were no threat to anyone. Well, today, with the findings of Mrs. Justice Keegan, that's exactly what they've got. Clearly and unequivocally. Will Leach, BBC Newsline at Belfast Coroner's Court.
Well, speaking after the coroner's findings were released, John Teggart, whose father Danny, as we heard there, was one of the victims, said the Ballymurphy families would not accept government proposals on a ban on prosecutions related to the Troubles.
The British government now wants us to deny us the chance for justice by introducing an amnesty for these murders. I want to speak directly to the people of Britain at this moment. Can you imagine what would happen if the soldiers murdered 10 unarmed civilians on the streets of London, Liverpool or Birmingham? What would you expect? An investigation? Would you expect justice?
The Ministry of Defence has issued a statement following today's rulings. It said it recognises how difficult the inquest process has been for everybody, and it will now take time to consider the findings. Earlier we spoke to Lord Dannatt, former head of the Army and Chief of the General Staff. He served in Northern Ireland in the 1970s.
Case to be made for probably the least worst option that actually
through the areas of West Belfast where the victims were killed, starting off in Springfield Park, the site of the first deaths. Many people lined the streets and 10 white doves were released. In other news, more than 430 people